Hey guys, JB here from Alpha Wolf Consulting. Alrighty, coming to you with the next activity or segment activity, which is using our language patterns to influence our beliefs and understanding how our language patterns influence our beliefs. Because as I've mentioned throughout this workshop, okay, the way our brain operates is our thoughts directly influence our beliefs directly influence our emotional states directly influence our feelings, how we feel internally, and as a result of us feeling those feelings, our brain releases the biochemical responses associated with those feelings. So if we're feeling happy, positive, optimistic, our brain will release more serotonin and things like that. So, all right. So when we're understanding, okay, the power of our internal language to positively or negatively influence how we feel about ourselves, okay, and how the language we use directly influences the internal beliefs we hold, okay, we're just trying to understand that basically how this works is our thoughts are our conscious thoughts. Our beliefs are our our strongest thoughts. So when it's a habitual thing, a habit. So think about, like, for example, when we do an activity or we do a task day in, day out, like riding a bike, it becomes a habit and it gets ingrained so deeply, and those neural or those synaptic pathways become so strong that it becomes like second nature, that we don't have to consciously put any effort into understanding, if I'm pedaling, how I have to hold the bike, okay, because it's so ingrained in us through action and through practice, that our subconscious is now doing this in milliseconds, okay? So that's what we're trying to consciously understand, is that the stronger we make our language and our thought patterns, okay, the stronger the beliefs or the habits of those thoughts will become, all right? So to understand all of this, okay, these are subliminal signals that we're sending into our subconscious, okay? Through the smallest of thoughts, through the biggest of thoughts. The more we think about something and the more it becomes a part of who we are, okay, the more it becomes easier for our brain to take those pathways for thought, okay? So it just means that those thoughts happen instantaneously, but also it's the path of least resistance, and that's what our brain is always looking for. Just like how in our physical form, okay, if I'm trying to do an activity that I've never done before, like let's take, for example, welding. I have never welded before, okay? So, for example, for me to try and weld, okay, my body doesn't understand how to hold the welding torch. I don't understand, how to, weld in new metal and things like that. So for me, it would be a very, very difficult activity to do at the beginning, because it wouldn't feel natural to me. So that's what we're trying to understand, is how our language patterns, okay, turn into our natural beliefs. And this is just through habitual, okay, through habit, through consistency, through conditioning. Take, for example, a young child, an infant, when they're first learning to walk, their motor function skills are not developed, their muscles are not developed, so it's quite difficult for them. But the more they do it and the more consistently they try and they practice, the stronger their muscles get, and the better their their motor skills become, the better their, the more competent they come at it. So what we're understanding is when we can consciously direct the language, okay, to create the belief that we want to have, okay, and the more we do it in repetition, and the more aware and mindful we are of, how our language, okay, the words we use, how we describe something, the narrative we give it, influences the beliefs that we create out of that. All right. So, for example, all right, for me personally in life, I am a very giving and kind person. But throughout my life in situations, okay, there has been people who have taken advantage of me financially, taken advantage of me, emotionally, mentally, and the easiest way to see this is if you've ever worked at a job, okay, and you went for the interview for the job, and in sales, this is a big thing, and it's called being sold the dream, where they tell you how great it is to work for their company. Their company doesn't do any unethical practices, doesn't do high pressure sales, they care about their consumer, okay, and all of this jazz, and how easy it is to make money. So you get sold in, and you join up to that company, and you start working for that company. And then a couple of days in, okay, then comes the, why aren't you getting sales? You should be hounding these people. Why are you only calling them once every 2 days? Why aren't you harassing them? Like you gotta be on top of your clients so that they make decisions quicker and all of this, and you gotta, pressure them in. And I've had many of these experiences of being sold the dream, to where in the interview, I explained to my potential employer that, I have a specific way that I operate, in the sense that I personally don't like to pressure people into making decisions, because that's a form of manipulation. If I'm trying to pressure you into making a decision quicker than you feel comfortable doing, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to limit your ability to cross-check information, your ability to think about it. Now, that's not to say that there is a bit of truth in that statement, that you want to control the time frame. But the thing is, the longer we leave a decision to be made, the less likely the decision will be made. But there's many ways to go about it. Okay. So when we're getting, sold these dreams of, we're gonna, be successful, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, it's a supportive environment, all of this, and then we get in there, okay, and it's not that. What we got to avoid doing, okay, is focusing on how this person took advantage of me, okay? Because if we have this narrative in our head, okay, they lied to me, it's not what they told me it was going to be, they misled me into believing that it was a better place than it would be, and all of this. What we do is, if we're focusing in on that sort of a language, it's projecting out into our future decision making. So what we want to do is we want to shift that language from being subjective to objective, to where we're looking at, well, how did they do that? Was it that, I was focused on the wrong aspects? So in sales, if we're focused on the income side of it, on what we're going to make, on what's in it for us, it's really easy. And this is in any employment, when we focus on, only on what they're going to give us and what we're going to get in all of this, and financial measures are our top priority. Okay, it's quite easy for someone to mislead us and lead us down the wrong path. All right. So when we understand that the language we're using, what we focus on is really either giving us power, or it's giving someone else power to control us. Okay, because when we understand like who we want to be and the beliefs that we want to hold and all of that, okay, what we're able to do is we're able to bullshit test people. We're able to cross-reference and check them. When anyone ever tries to force you into making a decision quickly, usually you want to put your back a bit up, and you sort of want to take a little bit of a step back and say, you know, why are they doing this? You know, what are they trying to accomplish? And then, but it's also when we focus on the things that matter to us, opposed to on what we think we're going to get, okay, what we're able to do. Sorry about that. We had a little bit of technical difficulties. Alrighty. So getting back to it, but when we focus on what we need as human beings in our life to be able to get to where we want to get to, and to be able to, you know, really focus in on what's important to us, you know, what matters to us, and you know, what are the most important things in terms of, you know, do I want to work in a company that has great company culture, or do I want to work in a company that only focuses in on, you know, the financial gains and all of that? All right. All right. But to even go deeper than that, right? Like my subconscious, okay, seeks out, like if I have that belief within my language, okay, so if my language is leading me to having a belief that, you know, people are going to take advantage of me, you know, employers are always lying to me, I can never find the right company, this and that, you know, what happens is it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, because where focus goes, energy flows. So if I focus on people will always take advantage of my kindness, okay, two things will happen. One, I will develop a fear of being kind to people for the off chance that someone takes advantage of me. But the second one is that what that fear of people taking advantage of me means that subconsciously I'm telling my subconscious that people take advantage of me, people take advantage of me. So my subconscious, through my reticular activation gland, I'm pretty sure that's what it's called, I'm bad with the pronunciation, but basically I will subconsciously seek out those people. I will seek out those those you know, situations, those environments where people take advantage of me. Because what we're really doing is our thoughts are shaping our reality. Okay, our beliefs are constructing what is possible and real in our reality. So when we have these negative beliefs and these negative thoughts and these negative, you know, views in our life, okay, and we focus on these negative events, one, we change who we are and how we interact with other people. And when we do it subconsciously, usually it's not for the best. So usually we become more defensive, we become more isolated, you know, we become more reserved. We sort of try to protect ourselves by not letting anyone in. And that doesn't do anything to anyone else. It just limits our own experience in this lifetime. You know, it takes away the color from our life, because we're not able to freely enjoy our life to the same extent we were to before. Okay. But the other thing is because I'm focusing on those things, my subconscious doesn't understand that I'm trying to avoid them. My subconscious just understands that they're things that I'm looking out for. So what happens is I will subconsciously move towards those people. So for example, we'll look at it in terms of relationships. But when we have, self-worth, self-belief, emotional trauma that we don't deal with, okay, and we don't actively and consciously control and curate the language and the narrative in our mind, what happens is we create these beliefs, okay, and we can see it, throughout society. And some people repeat the same cycles, the same events. So for me personally, I had self-worth issues. I didn't think I was worthy. So what happened was, in relationships, I seeked out subconsciously people that didn't accept me, that didn't see my worth. So what would happen is, because I didn't believe, like I truly didn't believe I had worthiness and I was a worthy human being, because I hadn't achieved anything great. Okay, what I did is I put myself through situations that took away from me. I engaged in relationships where the person didn't want to be with me. They didn't value me for who I was. They didn't see my worth. And it was a repetitive cycle. And the only way I was able to break out of this was by, one, shifting from subjective of this always happens to me, why does this happen to me, to objective of why am I putting myself in these situations? Why do these situations show up in my life? Why do these relationships and these, and these people keep, reoccurring in my life? Like, why am I doing the same thing over and over again? And what I didn't realize was that because it was subconscious, I wasn't aware that I was doing this to myself. So when we don't understand how our conscious thoughts influence our beliefs, and then our beliefs and conscious thoughts influence our subconscious thoughts, the narratives, okay? So when I didn't understand this, I didn't realize. I just thought everyone was like that and everyone was going to do that. So it led me to just keep spinning my wheels, doing the same thing over and over again and never getting the results I wanted. So it was only through really looking at it and understanding, well, why am I putting myself in these situations? So for me personally, in personal relationships, I had very bad codependency issues. The same in work situations. I never felt good enough. I always felt like I needed to, give more and do this, and, and it led me to putting myself into these situations that were highly negative for me, to where I was getting used, especially in employment, to where I was doing so much more than other people, but I wasn't being compensated. I wasn't being acknowledged. I wasn't being rewarded. I was going and getting these jobs, okay, and doing these jobs where the employer didn't see the value that I brought to the team. And the only thing that they wanted was me to do what they wanted me to do. So, they wanted to control me. They didn't want to reward me. They didn't think I deserved to be rewarded. They took advantage of me by, in some cases, there was employers that actively, took away in sales, took away my commissions because of technical, failures, in terms of, we would have bonuses for performance. And then they would say that because we'd missed one step in their process, or we'd missed one tiny thing, that we didn't deserve the bonuses. So, you know what I mean? And it wasn't because we'd done anything wrong. No, it's because, this specific employer, the owner, was a cheapskate, and he just wanted to not pay his staff. So he promised high incentives for performance, and then at the last minute, he would find a way to, say that we were in breach of the agreement, just so he didn't have to pay us. And you know what I mean? So for me personally, I would put myself in those situations and I didn't understand why. Why did I keep doing that? Okay. And why didn't I have the ability to, really stand up for myself and, and say no. So, with this employer, he tried that. Um, he wasn't the first one that tried it, but he was the last one that tried it, to where when he tried it, I told him to go and get fucked. And I walked out the next day because I didn't appreciate being lied to, misled, or used. I don't appreciate that. And the funny thing was, this was in IT sales, okay, in retail IT sales. But his argument was that we didn't have the store laid out to how he wanted it laid out, that we weren't trying to maximize the customers, that we were servicing the customers for the customers' needs and giving them the best service and not overselling them, because he wanted to make the maximum he could out of any customer that came in. So what I mean by making the maximum, when you charge $70 to show someone how to access their email address, I feel, a 5-minute thing to just explain this is how you do it, I feel like that is highly unethical behavior. And I could not accept that, because I do not appreciate, misleading people and being forced to mislead people to try and maximize the money you can get out of it, especially when they're retirees. That is not acceptable behavior in my book. So one of the big things for me in that situation was that I had to do what was right for me. And what was right for me was to tell him to go fuck himself and to walk out, because I'm not going to lower my moral and ethical values for any amount of money. I don't care. It doesn't matter. I would rather have my values and my morals than to, lower myself. But what I had to do is I had to identify, why was I in that situation? Like I knew from day one that was the way it was going to go, in terms of I knew the kind of person he was, and I knew, that it didn't align with me, but I still sat in there for longer than I should have. All right. So what we got to do is we got to be able to identify, these situations, and we got to shift it from being, why is someone taking advantage of me, to why am I allowing someone to put me in these positions? Because then we get the control back to, if we don't agree with it, well, then it's, moving forward. Look, I don't agree with this kind of behavior. And in our qualifying of the job, so when we go to the interview, just like an employer is trying to qualify the employee is should be trying to qualify the employer. Because, you don't want to put yourself in a position to where you're reliant on someone who doesn't value, your ethical and moral principles, who doesn't value, the experience you bring, who doesn't value, and a funny thing about this employer was, he put us on traineeships so that he could pay us below minimum standard. Because if he had to pay us at the, non-trainee wages as a full, person, and not a trainee, well, he would have been out a lot more money. So it's just being able to see, these people who are, predatory, because that's predatory behavior when you're trying to restrict your employees' incomes so that they need to always work more. And you can see this in the culture. In Australia, there's a lot of culture around this, around part-time employment, where employers will only employ you part-time or casual, and they'll keep your hours low so that they can employ more people, so that there's higher competition, so that if anyone calls in sick, there's always someone to cover. just terrible behavior. Because like, why would I ever work for someone to struggle? Like, that defeats the purpose of me going out there and working. Is why would I work for you to struggle to make ends meet? It's the same, in many countries where there are these predatory behaviors in business to where employers try and, misuse their employees and put them into these financial situations to where they're relying on it, okay, just so that the owner can have larger profits, can make more money. Not a good way. Not a good way at all. All right, so we'll start in on activity 1. Now, we've got to remember when it comes to language, all right, and when it comes to our beliefs, these are awareness and mindfulness practices. We have to be aware and mindful of, what language are we using to describe ourselves, to what's happening in our life, to how we position, what is happening. Is it just happening, or is it happening to me? Because if it's happening to me, I am the victim. If it's just happening, I am just observing it, experiencing it, whatever it may be, but I still have the control to get out of that situation. Whereas when it's happening to me, it's sort of like I give away my control. All right. And we also have to focus on like physically changing our language. So in the short term, okay, when we just start out these processes, we have to be very observant and mindful of the language we use, and we have to like pull ourselves up and physically change that language. So if we find ourselves saying, why is this happening to me? We have to stop and we have to reword that to like, why am I putting myself in this situation? And sort of take that control back and start looking at it unbiasedly. Why do I do this? So like, that's one of the important things. And when we're able to do this, okay, and then we're able to use full brain activation and the self-validation processes, what we're able to do is we're able to first consciously work on our narrative and our language, which shapes our beliefs. But then we're also able to work on our subconscious, on those thoughts and narratives and beliefs on the subconscious level, and just get a bit of harmony between them so that there's like unity. So if you ever feel like really confused and torn between, I don't know about this, I don't know about that, it just means that there's no cohesion. So maybe consciously you're thinking one way and maybe it's positive, and then subconsciously you've got negative, thought patterns and narratives running and beliefs. So what we have to do is we have to work on aligning them so that we're calmer, we're stabler, life's easier because it's less stressful. Because when we're in turmoil with ourselves and in sort of like a bit of a self war, so to speak, okay, what happens is it's very mentally draining, it's stressful and all of that. That's why you find that when you're around people who sort of may like hold drastically different viewpoints to you, and you're around them trying to appease them, and they're telling you that what you do and what you think is wrong, but you believe what you do and what you think is right, it's just a very taxing and draining environment for you. So we want to try and get as much mental peace as we can and as much alignment, because that's really going to make it easier for us to perform in life at a higher level, but also to live a calmer, more stable life. Because if I'm always feeling, because of my external environment, that who I am and what I think isn't ever good enough, because other people don't agree with me in my external environment, and I'm putting myself into these situations of always being around them, like what's going to happen is I'm never going to feel good enough. So there's going to be a lot of internal conflict within me, because from every external factor, I'm being told that I am wrong, and that I should change who I am. But I may feel within myself who I am is a valuable person. I might think of myself as, I do the right things, I have my own values, I believe in my values, but then the external environment's trying to drag me down. So you find this a lot in toxic relationships. So if you're around toxic people, it's very, very draining, because it's exhausting, because they're trying to manipulate and condition your mind, or change your point of view or argument. Like, have you ever noticed that when someone's trying to argue that they're right and you're wrong, that it's just such an exhausting conversation, to where sometimes you come away from that conversation and you need to lay down for an hour because you're just drained? Okay. And the reason for that is because they're challenging your internal beliefs. Okay. And they're trying to convince you that who you are is not good enough. And what it does is it causes internal conflict up here. Because if we're not conscious about the narratives that we hold, and how they create the beliefs that we hold, or how they influence our beliefs, okay, what happens is our external environment will go straight into our subconscious and start conditioning our subconscious. So then we will stop feeling good about ourselves. We'll stop feeling, these positive feelings, and then we'll start feeling fear. We'll start feeling negativity. We'll start feeling less. Okay. So we just have to understand that, and really understand that, nothing is ever happening to me in life. It's just happening. And it's 100% my choice if I'm in that situation or if I'm not in that situation. All right. So, but also another thing to remember is we have zero control over another's actions. Okay. Just like you have no control over my thoughts, beliefs, and actions, just like I have no control over yours. So if I am trying to control my external environment and change, how I feel internally by trying to fix my external environment in terms of, trying to educate the people around me to this is how I want to be treated and this and that, and they're toxic people. Okay. And this is mostly for, toxic relationships and toxic people around you. Because if someone's, happy within themselves and they're a positive person, they're not going to be so worried about controlling you, but a toxic person will. So someone who doesn't feel good about themselves will try and bring you down so that you feel less than they do, so that they can feel better about themselves because there's someone below them. So they'll constantly attack you and try and control you. All right. So we just got to understand, okay, that it's not about the actions a person takes against us, okay, because that's subjective. It's about the actions a person takes, and we should look at them. Why are they taking these actions? What are their goals? What are they trying to achieve? Like, how is their behavior influencing us? We have to detach from, this is happening to me, this person does this to me, people always do this to me, to why. Because when we start looking at it why, we start looking at it objectively. How, what are they doing? What are these actions? What is triggering me? What is causing me to feel unstable within myself? All right. So, yeah, just remembering, mindfulness is the key. Awareness is the key. But what we want to do is we want to really, really focus in on getting our conscious language patterns or narrative down pat, our thoughts, and then over time, they will then turn into habitual beliefs the more we think about it. That's why it's good having a practice where you might write down. I use an accountability board, and my accountability board is a little bit different. So I'll read off a couple of my accountability board. So one is that I have my own way of doing things. The next one is I don't copy others, I create my own way. And these are just language patterns that help me, because if I'm focused on how other people operate, how other people do things, then I'll never feel good because it doesn't feel right to me. Okay. Another one is I look to separate, not to follow. Okay. Because every time I'm following someone for no reason, now, if someone is, if they're competent, if they're knowledgeable, if they care about the people around them, like truly care about them, not just showboat, not just put on a front that they care. Okay. And you'll know the difference between someone who is falsely caring about you to get something from you, or someone who actually cares about who you are and what is best for you. Okay. And when we're able to separate that, and we're able to identify those people, then we want to get around those people who want the best for us in life, that want us to live our best life, that aren't trying to control who we are so that they can feel better about themselves. Okay, and it's the same in relationships, friendships, personal relationships. It's the same in, business relationships, customers, work situations with employers or colleagues. Like, we really want to understand, to the people that we listen to, are they competent? Do they do what they say they do? Do they actually put the effort in to understand, or do they watch a 20-minute video on YouTube and think they know what's what? Because we want to avoid those people that are just regurgitating other people's information that don't understand it. Because the thing is if they don't understand it, they won't say it right, and we'll get a different message than was truly intended. Okay. But also, it's laziness. If someone talks that they put the effort in and they don't put the effort in, don't ever believe a word out of their mouth. Because if they're not willing to do what they say they should do, it's sort of like how you see it. Like, for example, this isn't taking a dig at anyone overweight, but if someone tries to give me advice about fitness and they are not in the best shape of their life, I do not listen to them. If they are not actively taking their own advice, I do not listen to it. Now, it's not that you have to be in the best shape of your life for me to listen to you about fitness, but the key thing is if you're highly passionate and you're actually doing it, the work, I'm going to have a higher likelihood of listening to you, because you're doing what you're practicing what you preach, right? Everyone practices morality until they have a situation or an instance where they can get an advantage by lowering their moral ethics. So, for example, let's take politicians. Politicians are so easy to come against because they're corrupt and they lie constantly. You know what I mean? Anthony Albanese in Australia, just today or yesterday, got roasted because he doesn't understand what the current fuel price is. And he was saying that when he filled up, it was $1.80. In some cities in Australia right now, it's at $2.20 a litre. Like, why the hell would I ever listen to you about the cost of living crisis when you don't even understand what's actually happening in the country? Like, these are the things. Like, these people who are in power, who are our leaders, don't actually live like us. You know what I mean? So, a big thing should be that we should gut every politician's paid down to $40,000 a year so that they're struggling. Because I can believe you, they will care more about the little guy when they're struggling than they will when they're multimillionaires. It's just appalling how we have set up and allowed them to structure our political system, our government, for their own benefit, right? But the key thing is that we have these people telling us what's happening in the economy, what's right, what's wrong, and what action should be taken, but they don't even live within the same bounds as everyone else. It's just hypocritical. So we got to watch out for that. There are many people in this society, in this world, that will tell us how to live, yet they don't live, yet they don't follow their path, yet they don't, try to be their best version of themselves. We see this all the time with motivational speakers. So there's a big difference between motivation and hype. Motivation is something that's based in inspiration, that inspires you. Hype is just high energy. So if you have to go high energy, yes, 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 and all that bullshit to try and get yourself amped up, you're talking shit. Because if you are truly motivated, it's something within here, within your heart, where you just have this unrealistic fire within you that, you're excited every day and you can't help it. Anyone that has to hype themselves up in the morning, has to do these practices to get themselves into a great state, don't listen to them. Don't ever listen to them. Okay? Because they're not right. They're not living what they preach. They're talking shit because they have to try and artificially raise their state rather than internally raising their state. Okay? And how do we internally raise our state? Well, if I truly believe that every day I'm grateful to be alive and every day is my chance to live my best life, and in every moment and every interaction, I get the opportunity to be the best person that I want to be, or in any moment to choose who I want to be. Because, motivation, positivity, all of that jazz, if someone's disrespectful to me, I'm not going to be respectful to them. Do you understand? If someone's negative towards me, I'm not going to be positive towards them. I'm going to call them a donkey and keep walking. Like, I'm not going to sit there and just try and oh no, I'm all positivity, motivation, rah, rah, rah. Okay. What we got to understand is it's got to be internal, but the external environment doesn't mean anything. So, and that's a true thing, that if you really get into motivational speeches, the most inspirational speeches are the ones of people who suffered, who went through setback, who tried and tried and tried again. Take, for example, Thomas Edison. Take, for example, David Goggins. David Goggins took 3 attempts to get through the SEAL training. Okay? It's about the people that struggle. Jack Ma applied for I think 24, 25 jobs, and they all rejected him. And then he went on to build one of the largest e-commerce websites, not because he thought he was great, but because he had a vision and he fought for it. And it took him years upon years. We've got another one is Elon Musk with SpaceX, Tesla, struggling to make those work on the nice edge of failure. You know what I mean? That's inspirational, because what we want to do is we want to understand, how were they able to do that? When everything was going against them, how did they get that strength? You know what I mean? Then you got, the guy from Amazon. Oh, his name's lost to me right now. But basically, he struggled for years building that company from the ground up, right? And now we see him at the pinnacle of success, and we overlook all that hard work. We've got to understand that those are the things where motivation is. Motivation isn't someone who's high energy that's going to amp you up for an hour and get you there. No, it's, you got to find the people that are struggling, that help you within yourself. Find the courage to keep going. Find the courage to be willing to try again, to keep trying, to keep moving forward, regardless of the progression that you're getting. All right. All right. Well, this was a little bit on understanding how your language patterns influence your beliefs. And I will see you on the next one, which is the final one. And you have a great day. Thanks so much. Bye.